Good afternoon, eighth graders. This will be a quick recap of the Zoom session from 11:30 today on May 4th. As many have said, may the 4th be with you. So this is the LA8 recap. As I said in the Zoom session, I'm going to go over your Padlet links first. So to create a Padlet, which is what we're asking you to do, we want you to start compiling your quarantine work in a Padlet, and then you'll share it with us via a Google form that we'll send out later today. So basically, you're just going to click on this link here and you'll sign up with Google or log in with Google if you've already created an account. Some of you have. And you'll create your own board, and then you're going to import and copy and paste your quarantine work. So I'm going to show you how to do that here really quickly. So you'll just click on this link. And you can hit the sign up. It's free, or you can and sign in with your Google. Or if you're like me, I already have an account. So I'm just going to log in, and I'm going to log in with Google. And I'm gonna make sure I use my school account. And here we go. So when you log in, it'll show any Padlet that you've contributed to. So I've contributed to the Poetry in Motion Padlet that Mr. Dickinson created recently, last week. And so what you'll do is you'll create your own Padlet. You'll click the Make a Padlet link right here. I'm kind of circling it with my mouse. Make a Padlet. And you can choose any one of these different uh, outlines, or I guess templates. I'm just going to select the one that we've been using, which is the wall. And then over on the right-hand side, you can make all of the edits that you want. So again, this is taking just a second to load, and it auto-populates, but basically I'm gonna type, maybe I'm going to say this is my extended Padlet, right? And then I might add a description. And then this would be, I can change the wallpaper, I can change the color scheme, whatever it is that I want to do. And so there would be, I gotta move my mouse here for a second. I'll click the next button, right? And I can start posting. Another thing that you will have to do is you will want to be able to, you want to change the privacy. And so to do that, you will, I got to remember because Mr. Dickinson showed us how to do this. You will go into the share and the change privacy button right here, and you will make it public. And then you'll want to switch this to can read. That way then no one else can add to it, but you are able, others are able to view it. And by others, I mean Mr. Dickinson, Ms. Tresik, and myself. And so then you'll just share, oh, oopsie. We'll go ahead and do that. And then I'll save it. And then all you would have to do in the share is you would just click the copy link to clipboard, and then you would just paste it into the form for later. So that is how you create a Padlet. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is our lesson for today. So we've decided to stick with the theme of nonfiction writing, and this week our focus is going to be letter writing or correspondence. And so I'm going to go over a brief example with you, an outline, and then kind of we'll go into a little bit at the end why we write letters and why it is a genre that is worth discovering or worth working in. So to create a letter, we've kind of talked about letters a little bit at the beginning when we were doing some work with patterns of power and our grammar with Mug Monday, but we want to be really intentional here. So the structure of a letter, you always have an opening, salutation, and address, meaning like dear so-and-so or hello. And depending on how formal or how, close a relationship you have with the person that you're sending this letter to, that will change the way that you write a letter. I think about the way that I would send something to my boss versus my friend or versus a student or versus a family member. And so that greeting may change. Right. And so just right, like it says, the formality and purpose matter. And so the way that you address someone, right, you wouldn't call me by my first name. You would say Ms. Decker. Or, but if you were talking to a friend, you would probably refer to them by their first name. When I'm talking to someone who is my superior, I oftentimes use the Ms., Mrs., or Mr. Address because I want to show respect for their position at school or whatever it might be. And then you'll go into the body. And so you might indent, you do not have to, so it's not a requirement of letters, or you'll keep it left aligned. And then you'll want to separate when you so instead of double spacing, you will just like basically hit the return button twice in between each paragraph. Um, and then you want to make sure that you have multiple paragraphs, that it's not just one, because it gets really hard to read. We've talked about that in your writing in the past, where if you're writing an essay and it's all one paragraph, it's really daunting for the readers. You've got to chunk out the information appropriately. Um, and then you have an ending salutation, which oftentimes is best regards, best wishes, sincerely, your friend, or whatever it might be. And again, that will be indicative of the relationship that you have with that person. If it is a more formal relationship, you might say something like best regards, or sincerely, or hope to hear from you soon, or something like that. You can use the ending salutation as a way to encourage a response. I know for me, when I send emails to your parents or even to you, oftentimes I'll end something with, hope you have a great day. I look forward to hearing from you soon, or something like that. Just spur on the fact that I'm waiting for a response um, to that. And then you'll have your signature, which again might be your first and last name. It might be like if I'm signing a letter or an email or a letter to you, I'm going to write Ms. Becker. If I'm saying it to Mr. Dickinson or Mr. Tracy, I'm just going to write Ben. I might not even include my name if it's a very informal email. You always want to have a signature when you are writing a letter. And so the example that I want to show with you is going to be a letter from Frederick Douglass to Harriet Tubman. So we know Harriet Tubman as a woman who helped basically establish the Underground Railroad, right? And snuck slaves from, or enslaved individuals from the South up to the North where they could find safety. And so Frederick Douglass was also someone who worked with the Underground Railroad and very closely with Harriet Tubman. And so while Tubman is famous to us, and we know her and we understand who she is, she was not very well recognized during her time. Frederick Douglass was someone who is extremely well praised for his work with the Underground Railroad. And so what we're going to look at together here is an example of a letter that he wrote to her. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but like the purpose of this letter is really important. She had asked him to write a letter, basically almost like a letter of recommendation, saying like, these are the things that she has done well, to kind of show that, hey, I've been a help to this, and basically just like speaks to her work with the Underground Railroad. And while he's writing this, and it says, Dear Harriet right here, this letter is for a much larger audience. Obviously, it's been published, but it is more to celebrate her, and it is for the public to realize how instrumental she was in the freeing of slaves, or the movement of slaves from the South to the North. So we'll notice right off the bat that it says Rochester, August 29th, 1868. Because this is a formal letter, he notes the place and the time, the place and the time of the letter writing. He also says, Dear Harriet, which is a more formal greeting or beginning salutation. And so, because this is a letter of recommendation, or a letter that speaks of her attributes and her hard work, he's writing this in a much more formal way than if he was just conversing with her and it was just for her eyes only. And so it says, I'm glad to know that the story of your eventful life has been written by a kind lady, and that the same is soon to be published. You ask for what you do not need when you call upon me for a word of commendation. I need such words from you far more than you can need them from me, especially when your superior labors and devotion to the cause of the lately enslaved of our land are known as I know them. The difference between us is very marked. Most that I have done and suffered in the service of our cause has been in public, and I have received much encouragement at every step of the way. You, on the other hand, have labored in a private way. I have wrought in the day, and you in the night. I have had the applause of the crowd and the satisfaction that comes of being approved by the multitude, while the most that you have done has been witnessed by a few trembling, scarred, and footsore bondmen and women, whom you have led out of the house of bondage, and whose heartfelt God bless you has been your only reward. The midnight sky and the silent stars have been the witnesses of your devotion to freedom and of your heroism. Excepting John Brown, of sacred memory, I know of no one who has willingly encountered more perils and hardships to serve our enslaved people than you have. Much that you have done would seem improbable to those who do not know you as I know you. It is to me a great pleasure and a great privilege to bear testimony from your character and your works, and to say to those to whom you may come that I regard you in every way truthful and trustworthy. Your friend, Frederick Douglass. And so you'll notice here, the purpose of this letter is to highlight how instrumental she was, and he almost compares it to himself, and he uses it as a way to say, these are the things that I've done. I'm very well known, and people know that I've done these great things. You're even better than that. And so people would recognize that, oh my goodness, here's this man who's done so much, and he's saying even this woman has done even more. Right. And so that's kind of that purpose here. And then you'll notice that his closing, right, it follows the basic structure. Your friend, Frederick Douglass, he signs his full name, and he notes that they are friends. Right. So it carries all of these things. If you look at it, shows the formality, we see the purpose. It's not indented. There's an ending salutation and a signature. Right. And so along those lines of like, why should we be writing letters? And obviously it was many years ago, right? Kind of even before my time, letters were the way of communication. We didn't have the immediacy of email and text messages and smartphones. Smartphones weren't even really a thing until the last, 15 years. And so you didn't have access to all these things when you were not in front of a computer or when you were not at home next to a telephone. And so it's one of those things that it communicates thoughts and emotions more meaningful. It reveals the real you. Mr. Dickinson in our Zoom talked about how that they it would be almost difficult to discover who we are if a historian was like studying us in the future after we've passed on. We are inundated with information constantly. Like to go through someone's correspondence via text message and email would be such a job. Whereas like when we see like right historians studying people from our past, they didn't write as much, and so those letters that they did write were more meaningful because they revealed who they were. And so you become more thoughtful and intentional because you're not just whipping out a quick text message and a quick response, right? So you're not going to go with kind of that gut reaction. You're going to take the time to really think and respond thoughtfully, right? And then as a reader, you would feel that thoughtfulness. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes in movies they have montages where someone is like trying to write something and they crumple the paper and they throw it in the trash can, right? And it's over and over again because they just start and stop, right? That's what a letter becomes. You really take the time so that you are being more intentional and thoughtful, and then the reader feels that. Right. And then kind of, I spoke to that already, but it would be a little bit less overwhelming, right? If we were writing letters, because think about that process. You take maybe a day to write a letter to someone and you explain like what you did and how you're feeling. And that would be a little bit longer correspondence than a one sentence text message, right? And then you put it in the mail. Takes a couple days to get there. They read it. They take a couple days to respond. They send you something back, and that takes even a couple more days. And so that whole process might be a week and a half to 2 weeks, right? And so it would just be our communication would be so much more valuable in the sense that we would put more emphasis on the importance of letter writing versus the immediacy. Because I don't know about you guys, but if I send someone a text or an email, I'm like, okay, where's the response? Why aren't they responding? Right. Whereas a letter, you would have to know that like you're just going to have to wait, right? And so then that would kind of lead to the last point of you develop some patience there, which I know I personally don't have when I'm corresponding. And so another thing that it also does, it develops writing skills, right? Vocabulary, voice, figurative language, because again, you are putting pen to paper or pencil to paper and being really intentional with how you're wording things. And so your mission is you are going to read the 2 letters assigned via Google Classroom on Common Lit and take note of the structure of each letter. Is it formal or informal? What are the salutations? What's the content and paragraph structure? And then what is the signature? If you have any questions, please feel free to email your teachers. We are here. And then do not forget to fill out that form that we'll link later today for the Padlet. So have a great day, guys.